would not tell them what it was. And now that's you.
Well, thanks very much. I really appreciate the reaction to this film. Thank you so much.
What has it been like, sort of seeing this film get a second life 18 years after it premiered, and a whole new audience of people discovering it, a lot of people seeing it tonight for the first time? I mean,
it's obvious. It's obviously very gratifying. There was qualities to the whole prospect of making this film that I felt very strongly about, and it probably has to do with those passages in the film that have a certain poignance, a certain transcendent quality, which all come from the story situation. So, to the parts of the film that, and I think every filmmaker's like this. You have sections of films that you really fall in love with. You have others that you could continue to re-edit. It's a very special, it's a very special film to do for me. So yeah, very gratifying.
what is the sequence that you fall in love with in this film?
The sequence that, well, a number of them. Everything in Cuba, when Crockett and Isabella go to Cuba, and then when they're at Jose Hierro's club, the whole dance, basically that whole story. It stems from a real situation. What motivates me into story is usually something that happened in actuality. And there was a guy who I knew quite well, who was an undercover DEA agent working global narco-terrorism. And he fell in love. It was a happily married guy, a very conventional family in Miami. He'd done a lot of work in Beirut and Marseille, and then he was on an undercover operation with money launderers in Hong Kong and fell in love with the sister of his target. And that's supposed to never happen. And the long-term deep cover, which is extraordinarily difficult, and the people who do this are quite brilliant when you meet them and talk to them and get into the details of what this relationship was. And it ended very tragically. He was eventually indicted, and when he knew he was going to go down, he went out to the interstate and walked in front of an 18-wheeler and killed himself. And that's where the idea of when the same thing happens to John Hawkes when he does it. So, but that romantic, kind of transcendent, ephemeral conviction that I've met somebody, this is the love of my life, and I want nothing more than to be with them and sacrifice everything. And yes, I've lost the sense of which way is up, and there's no red lights, there's no green lights, there's no traffic lights. I'm just going for this. So that's very much, the heart of this thing for me.
Congratulations on the archives, the Michael Mann archives. If you don't know, give it a round of applause. My favourite part of my own personal deep dive into the archives is your work with actors and these obsessive Bibles that you create for them. I wonder, because Miami Vice is not yet on the archives, do you have any stories about preparing the actors in this film? Any fun stories about working with them?
We did a lot. We had to, first of all, we waited for a number of months to shoot this in the summer, and we knew we were going to get into the hurricane season, but we thought it might be mild. It turned into the most violent hurricane season in North Atlantic for 100 years. So while we were shooting this film, we had Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Wilma, some tropical storm. But while we were waiting, we did a lot of work. And at one point we ran a load from out in the shipping lane 8 miles outside of Miami at night, and did everything that you see portrayed here, but we did it for real all the way through in the middle of the night. We did, Colin went undercover in effect in a way. The DEA had an undercover storefront operation where they were receiving smuggled drugs. They were coming in at Miami Airport, and at one point he took part of some of that and was receiving some of it. So you know, if you want to really capture the intensity of what it is to do this kind of work, you put yourself in a real situation. It's a fabulous thing to do, but it's so detailed, it's so specific, and it has so many edges to it. And so I'm a big believer in doing that kind of work with the actors, and you know, it becomes an adventure for us. But anyway, I'm sure there's a lot of other things that we're working on.
Your amazing collaborator, Billy Goldenberg, I've been lucky enough to chat to him on our show, and you worked with him from Heat, The Insider, Arlene. How did your relationship develop over those years, and do you have any story about the philosophy of editing this thing? Because together in this audience, it's just
two things. Billy began on Heat. On Heat, we had when I shot Heat, I was asked whether or not we could get together for Christmas, which meant we'd had a 16-week prep, and many of us who work in the film industry here now, that is insanely short. And it was a 2-hour and 45-minute movie, and I said, after 6 weeks, if I think the narrative is in good shape, we'll shoot for it. We did. So the way we did it is we had 4 editors working on the film, and we worked literally around the clock, and within different shifts. And so Billy was the junior editor. It was Tom Rolfe, who was a brilliant editor, Pasquale Buba, and then my old friend Ned Honig, who had cut Thief for me and worked on Last of the Mohicans and everything. Manhunter, and Billy, I just felt that from experience on Heat, that he had a real sense of the rhythms that I was looking for, the emotional rhythms, the particular shot, which may have an asymmetric composition, they have a lot of negative space, there's an offset figure in it, and how that worked with another shot. So we kind of we did our. And in a sensorial way, we're kind of in the same group, and I just felt that rapport, and that's why we worked together. And Billy's just directed a film, by the way, so.
Yes, he's in London. He couldn't be here tonight. He was actually going to be here before we had you. This is really bizarre sitting next to you. Do you know that for us?
This guy, you have to hear this. Somebody told me, you know, there's 1 minute of Heat. I said, what are you talking about, 1 minute of Heat? He said, some guy in Australia or New Zealand or someplace is putting together, where they're doing an hour podcast on each minute. I said, this is absolutely insane. He said, no, it's true. And he gets people on there to talk about this particular minute. And so, this is the gentleman who did this.
One of the fun things about watching Miami Vice now is seeing this amazing supporting cast: John Hawkes, John Ortiz, Justin Theroux, various people who were emerging at the time and now are, you know, really well-established actors and character actors. How did you, what is your casting process in finding, not just your stars, but your supporting actors? Like, are you watching a lot of stuff and discovering them, or how is that? What are you looking for when you cast?
Well, some just comes through casting. In the case of Ortiz, it was a casting session. I just kind of fell in love with him, and I sensed the rapport right away. Barry Shamaka Henley is an old friend, and I love working with him. He's fantastic. He was terrific in Collateral. And then John Hawkes was in a movie called Me and You and Everybody We Know. Miranda July directed, and my daughter Erin, who is here someplace, was a production designer on it, and that's when I first saw John Hawkes, and that's it. And see who else. And
Eddie
it's kind of a normal casting process. But Gordon Lee is a special case. She's fabulous. And when I first saw her in Red Sourdough by Emu, the director, and she didn't speak really any English at the time, and she didn't even speak Cantonese. She only spoke Mandarin. And so she learned not just English, she used Mandarin phonetics to learn English, but Cuban accented English. So, wow. Then myself and Colin and Bong Lee went to Havana.
I want to hear some of those stories.
So what you're asking about what we do, it's a very important trip because we made up a biography, which I very much do with every character for every actor, and there was a Chinese-Cuban general in Cuba, so there's a basis of the Chinese community in Cuba, so it's the basis of our family. But we went to Havana and met people who would have been like her parents. And I had this idea that her parents were doctors and her mother volunteered to go to Angola during that conflict. And during the liberation of Angola, those struggles. And we met with a number of doctors in Havana who had been in Angola, who volunteered to go to Angola. And it was a very, very moving session. And one of the things one of them said to me is there are no Angolan diamonds in Walsh in Cuba, which had to do with that idealistic left perspective, National Liberation Front struggles, and what was in these people's minds. You know? And so it was a very, she's a brilliant actress, and that's how the character really got grounded in that backstory.
I really want to ask, because I think this crowd enjoyed him. Eddie Marsan is amazing in this movie as Nicholas. Can you tell us anything you remember about working with Eddie? Because he's just a delight in this movie.
I don't remember to be honest, I don't remember what I saw him in, but I really wanted to work with him in this. And I love the scene in the penthouse. I think Naomi Harris' delivery. It cracks me up every time I see it.
It's an incredible ensemble scene where everyone's, putting in their different lines, Marlon's highlights, cleaning up the glassware, everyone has a personality moment.
Right, yeah.
But also at the same time we see Colin.
And he's also whining and complaining. And she says, because you do crime.
Don't do the crime if you can't do the crime.
And there's a significant moment there, which for me, I was surprised. I didn't know it was going to work or not. But while that's happening, Crockett's looking out the window at the sea, and it's a moment that was my ambition for it was that you would sense that he's looking for something. That's all. Not what he's looking for. It's just that he's looking for something. The sense of a man who is introspective moment, and he's searching. That's all. And I just wanted to set that up and to somehow establish that vacuum that Bong Lee or Isabella fills, and I was kind of gratified that people that asked me about that shot, and then actually, you never know if something's going to actually communicate your intent or not. It's gratifying to find it did.
Your heroes often look at the sea. The heroes in your film, or Robert De Niro, he's staring at the sea. So it's a theme you come back to, searching for something. Even Jamie Foxx in Collateral has the island postcard.
That's my own personal affliction. I'm trying to figure something out. I try to live with this.
You mentioned this a little bit about being inspired by the story of a man who was undercover who fell in love with, his target sister. But I'm curious, what is it about an undercover story that is so compelling to you as a storyteller, and then even for us as audience members?
It's a real. It's hard to put in 25 words or less.
You can have more words.
If you,
Michael, I did
It's got such
200 hours.
It's such a high It's such a high degree of difficulty. You asked for it. There's two schools. One's the American school, which is typically not in non-official cover, what's called a knock. That's the basic CIA approach. The Russians have a different approach where people take a completely fabricated identity. When somebody does go undercover, particularly long-term undercover, it is projecting themselves into a different personality, but usually they're exploiting tendencies within themselves and amplifying them. And there's a willful suspension of belief. It's like an actor, but there's no take two in what you're doing. There's only every take one has got to be perfect. There can't be any slip up. And when you meet a lot of these people, I met a lot of them, and talk to them about what goes on in their life and the pathology of the after effect of being in a long-term undercover. Whether a guy walks in, undercover guy from ATF walked in a place and he was challenged, and somebody pulled a gun on him, and he took the gun and pointed to his forehead and said, "You want to kill me? Fucking kill me right now." Put the gun on his own forehead like that, and after a tense moment like that, he goes home and walks in the house, and the wife was angry because he hadn't taken the garbage out in the morning. His brain is ready to explode. And so these, that's a small example of it, but Steve, the man I referred to, is a big case in point. We had a lot of these people around. There was an ex-KGB agent who had left Russia in about 1990 and was engaged when we met him in going undercover, offering nuclear artillery rounds to the FARC and other people. And it was all a setup. He was working with the DEA Special Operations Division, SOD. So, and you drill down and ask them, where were you living? What was the hotel? What hotel did you check into? What was your first contact? When did you feel challenged? Did you ever have any time? So you get into the detail of it. It's quite fascinating. And then the genome of this is a guy who's undercover. He's never supposed to get involved in any emotional way, and instead he finds the true love of his life, and it's the target he's going after. And those circumstances, expressed, I think, beautifully by Colin and Jamie in the scene where they're preparing to go meet Jose Yarrow in that hangar. That's the essence of it, and that is the genome that creates all the story and all the dramatic situations, of the movie.
You mentioned, we were chatting earlier, that Jose Yarrow is a real person. Yeah, can you tell us about how you discovered Jose Yarrow?
The character Jose Yarrow is based on a real person named Jose Yarrow, who was a drug importer in Miami during the 70s and 80s.
And you were compelled by his story or his way of doing things?
No, he calls himself Coach at Loco by the kind of the primitive brutality of it. All of this comes from someplace. There was an undercover guy I know who met Amado Carrillo Fuentes, who was the head of the wireless cartel in the 80s and 90s, who at the time of his death was, the DEA estimated was worth $35 billion. And he died under liposuction. He tried to change his appearance, and after 13 hours of liposuction, he had a heart attack and died. But he bought the best signal intercept equipment, he bought consultants about how do I organize what I'm doing more effectively, and compartmentalizations and everything else, and he was, and somebody I know met him in an undercover role briefly, and so that scene in which they meet and Crockett the first time sees Isabella, that's kind of exact staging of how they're blocking this exact staging of what was described to me. There was the military, the way they were organized, and who searched them, and then there was 4 cars, and one was, monitoring, to make sure they weren't being surveilled and everything else. So it's all comes from somewhere, and which is kind of the exciting part of doing this.
I think we probably have time to do a couple audience questions.
Yeah, let's do a couple of audience. Would anyone like to talk to Michael Mann?
We've got a mic, so we're
Got a mic.
Let's do this person right in front.
Yeah.
Close.
Hi, Michael. You talked about going to Cuba with Colin. There's a lot of awesome photos with him and Diego Maradona. So I'm wondering if you have any stories about that when you're in research.
No.
It's a good question. It's valid. All right, anyone else?
Right there.
Hi, I'm just curious. I love how you write female characters in all your films, and I'm curious if you sort of tailor the parts when the actresses sign on to the role.
No. See one of our answers. I can't imagine anybody would want to do that. Okay? Do it the other way. The adventure for the actor, for me, is to be somebody, be somebody else. And the more difficult and challenging and interesting, the further from who the actor is, the more exciting it is for an actor. So, yeah.
Right.
Let's go. You pick, Blake.
Guy with the red hat down here, my man. Katie.
Hi. First of all, Michael, I used to live 3 houses down from Barry Shabaka Henley, and I would see him when I was walking my dog a lot, and he always had very nice things to say about you. But I did have a question about the opening of this movie, which I think you saw everybody really loves. How did that come to you? Was that something you had planned out, or did it happen in editing? I'm just curious how that whole thing came together.
The theatrical cut opening is not my favorite opening.
I should have heard this crowd.
This crowd agrees to disagree.
I had this wonderful boat race, which for some inexplicable reason decided to not be there and took it off.
Wait, who decided?
I decided.
Oh.
That makes it worse. I much prefer the original opening, which is there on the director's cut and the Blu-ray, which, but then there was always an awkwardness though when they hit the top of the dock with a much better sense of it. But then, I think we got the point of saying, no, let's just jam right into the club. So.
It starts in motion, almost as if you're...
That was the idea.
Yeah, and it ends in motion. He's walking into the hospital, yeah. But, it's already happening. You're sort of drawn in a really interesting way.
How did you pick Nam Encore? Nam Encore song. The song in the club. How did you choose that? How did you come onto this?
Just listening to a lot of stuff and deciding this.
That was the one. Good answer. Let's maybe go up the back. There's a very enthusiastic man. It's probably easy for you to get to up in the back.
We asked a question about the music. Moby made a big contribution to this. As he did to Heat, and when we were in this crazy 16-week post instead of the typical about 40-week post where we should have had, I come into the editing room and he'd be asleep under one of the avids or something.
Moby?
Huh?
Moby would be asleep.
So he was just around all the time, kind of composing. It was a real 16-week, just,
Like an elf or something.
Question right up the back.
Hello, Mr. Mann. I wanted to ask. Mr. Mann. So, at the time, like you were one of the first, probably the first directors to photograph LA with the Thompson Viper like that. How much do you think the camera contributed to the look of Miami Vice at the time? Like, because if you would have done it with like a Mini or a Red during that time, it wouldn't have had that same look, because the Viper, like I feel like giving it that heavy grain, that type of muddy look, like it contributed so much to that almost surrealistic, dreamlike look that the film got. Like,
when we did the, when I shot the, actually when we did Collateral, okay, we were using the Sony F900, and then we also did the Viper, because the Thompson chip and the Viper, it sounds like a cliche, it's a Dutch chip, but it has a very Rembrandt a way of rendering midtones that I liked a lot. And on Miami Vice, we used Sony cameras. And it was kind of early days. They had remote recorders. And they weren't really made for the rigors of production. Normal production. We didn't do normal production. We had these cameras mounted in boats and the recorders down in the hatch, surrounded with shock absorbent materials and dry ice. I mean, it was a real drama. But the objective was to get a high saturation. The ambition was to make the film almost look like Dying Libation or three-strip Technicolor from the 1950s. We really get that intense saturation. And that had to do with both the skies, the colors in general, and then also a sense of the, also a sense of the world, and particularly also some of the wardrobe. And that's the costume designer was Michael. Jesse, what was his last name? Michael Kaplan's a fantastic designer. And my daughter Jessie's another. Also worked on the show as assistant costume designer.
Got one more from the crowd, and then I've got one more for Michael. Let's go right in the middle.
You can run it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, the guy down there, the beard and the hat. Yeah, that guy.
Hello. I had a question about the vehicles and all the set cars and set boats and planes and all of those things. When you were choosing which set cars, boats, etc. to use, was there one that you felt really contributed to the success of the scene, or it changed your vision for that scene?
Well, the offshore powerboat, this one.
Mojo.
Sorry, one of the.
Should be illegal because it's so much fun to driving this thing is fantastic. And then there's of course the Ferrari 430, which I spent an inordinate amount of time at the factory deciding on the colors of. It's designed by a guy named Frank Shelton, who went to California, in Pasadena, to California. What's it, California?
Oh, CalArts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a brilliant automobile designer. Like I asked him, what was his what was the theory, what was the strategy behind his design for that particular model for our, was to shrink wrap the skin of it around the function. It's a very, very beautiful car. Anyway, so, but primarily the cars are great, but the boats was something else.
Any favorite car? Do you have a favorite car in the movie?
Oh, no, lots of them.
All right.
Final question.
Final question.
Mr. Blake Howard.
From me. We were just in Ciudad del Este in this film. And interestingly enough, Ciudad del Este plays quite a significant part in a novel, a bestseller that you co-wrote called Heat 2, which you might understand interests me quite a bit. Could you tell us anything? And tell me, you don't have to talk to them, tell me anything about Heat 2.
Because it's basically I'm working on the screenplay 7 days a week, and it's large. It's going to be at least as large as was the original, which is 2 hours and 45 minutes. But and then some of what the characters do is more, has evolved beyond the novel itself, like particularly Christopher Hurley's character in the fourth part of it, the last act of it. So it's large. And it's going to go we would shoot in Paraguay, shoot our last day, where we shot for a number of days in this picture, and which is a very wild place. And then also in Mexicali and Chicago and LA, and then in Southeast Asia, probably Batam, which is right across from Singapore, right across the Strait of Malacca from Singapore.
Can't wait.
Thank you.